This week on Captiol Report, Hayes and Logan square off for a debate in one of the nation's hottest congressional races.
There's so much at stake. He can't even denounce January 6th.
We are not on the same page on a lot of different issues.
Also, lawmakers and police sound the alarm about reckless driving in Connecticut.
Speed matters. We are holding reckless drivers and impaired drivers accountable.
Plus, we discussed the ballot question about expanding access to absentee voting.
We find that voters are generally supportive when we inform them about absentee balloting in Connecticut.
Democrats have failed to prove themselves worthy of being able to implement no-excuse absentee balloting.
Also, a new report highlights how hard it is for Connecticut families to make ends meet.
It's frustrating. We work very hard and still coming up short at the end of each month.
Time to make the donuts. Captiol Report starts now. Welcome to Captiol Report. I am Tom Dutchick. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the Power Panel. Look who's here. Brandon McGee, former housing czar, now marijuana czar.
Cannabis.
Everybody's coming to you now.
Joe Arasim was the 2-2 coach of the Berlin Redmen, right?
Plugging along, yeah.
Liz Karanowitz, extraordinaire campaign campers, and Johnny McGee, the Ed Crane pool of the panel.
I still got my Mets colors on. Let's go, baby.
All right, guys. Hey, we're coming up on 3 weeks until Election Day. Can you believe it? And last Wednesday night, we finally got to see Democratic Congresswoman Johanna Hayes and Republican challenger George Logan face off in a debate. If Connecticut Republicans have a chance to flip a seat red, this is it. This is a rematch. Hayes won in a squeaker in 2022. The Republican Party pouring cash into this race. If you watch NFL football on any Sundays, you see that. Chances are you're aware of this. And when it came to time to debate this other night, things got a little chippy. Differences regarding the economy, how to tackle affordable housing, and government spending were among the topics. But exchange over who Logan would support in the presidential election rewarded us with this exchange. What's this?
Challenger, who claims to be the party of law and order, he cares about all these things, can't even say the name or the 34 times convicted felon that he plans to vote for.
I cannot, in good conscience, support 4 more years of the bad policies from the Biden-Harris administration. My opponent wants to continue on that same path that has led to a lot of these problems that we have now. I will be supporting the presidential ticket of this election.
Good. Can't say the name.
The Republican presidential ticket this election.
John McKinney, a lot to unpack here, as they say. It's kind of like Henry Winkler back in the day. Fonz trying to say he was wrong, right? Say Trump to Trump.
Here's why Congresswoman Hayes and her team are so frustrated. They want George to say the name Trump so they can cut it into a 30-second ad, don't talk about any issues, and make it about Trump. George is too smart to make that happen. But what's so crazy and hypocritical about this is that 2 years ago, Congresswoman Hayes couldn't even say that she was a congressman. When protesters around colleges and universities were chanting "from the river to the sea," anti-Semitic hate language, Congresswoman Hayes couldn't even say that it was hate speech. This is really hypocritical of her. And I think George Logan got under her skin. You can tell her that. And she made a classic mistake. She said George Logan should go back to wherever he came from. Imagine if Donald Trump had said that. Oh, wait, we don't have to, because he did. And Vice President Harris called it a racist trope. Nancy Pelosi called it a racist trope. Johanna Hayes, you made a racist trope, and you should apologize.
Oh, you think McKinney's ready for this one?
He's a little fired up today.
Fired up, huh? Well, I will say this. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of what's happening locally there in Waterbury or where they represent. What I will say is Johanna Hayes, in the spirit of supporting Kamala Harris and what's been happening across this country, I think she performed overwhelmingly well. Did she have a lot of frowns and things happening there? Hey, sure. But one of the things that I took away was her clear plan for supporting the 5th Congressional District. Whether it be housing, education, you name it, it was clear. And I'm not certain that former state senator Logan was able to articulate his plans for the 5th Congressional District.
Look, and George has to do this funky dance, right? Speaker Johnson is intimately involved in this campaign. They're putting a lot of money into it. It's one of the targeted races. We've all heard some of the comments out of Speaker Johnson that we find objectionable. He is the one that pulled the immigration deal off the table at the last minute because of Donald Trump's urging. So George has a difficult dance to do. I can fully understand why he doesn't want to say the Trump name. I tend to agree with you, John, that it's to catch it in the ad. But he is supporting Donald Trump and Mike Johnson, and voters of the 5th Congressional District have to decide how they feel about that.
All right, guys, hey, let's debate debates for a moment. Do they even make a difference in this day and age of digital ads and digital campaigning? Rosa DeLauro, who's seeking an 18th term in Congress, says she will not debate 3rd District challenger Republican Michael Massey. Massey wants a debate, but DeLauro told the New Haven's independent friend Paul Bass, the Bassmaster, that people don't see debates as relevant as they have been in the past. Liz Carreras, what do you think?
I mean, guys, like, with all due respect, we have an entirely new presidential campaign as a result of a disastrous debate. Kamala Harris would not be the Democrats' presidential candidate if debates didn't matter. And debates do matter because of, just like you pointed out, right? I mean, things get clipped up, you say the wrong thing, and now it becomes a commercial. So they do matter. It is something that's important to democracy, to keeping true to those debates. And clearly they are influential, or this entire political cycle we're in would be very different.
Look, Congresswoman DeLauro is one of our patriotic or matriarchic politicians, and I understand what she's saying. She gets a lot of opponents that really have no chance. They don't have the money. They don't have the ground game. They're not going to get the votes. So she's up there as a piñata just getting knocked around. But I will add that a debate is good for the public. Whether it's a serious challenger or not, they're going to bring up issues that allow the electorate to see a little bit more into their political figures. And I think they are important. They should continue. I will tell you the J.D. Vance and Governor Walz debate was received well by everybody. They might not have liked the issues, but they saw him up there sharing ideas, bouncing back and forth. They liked that it wasn't overly negative. Should participate.
And Joe, we were doing, you know, state rep, state senate candidates are doing 3, 4, 5 forums and debates every 2 years.
Don't we remember?
4 of the 5 people on this panel have debated.
So, so you have to do that debate because they'll pick out issues. For example, going back to the Logan Hayes debate, we learned that Jahana Hayes voted with her party 99.9% of the time, and she belittled George Logan's bipartisanship in creating the fiscal guardrails that Democrats like Ned Lamont have championed. So you learn a lot in these debates.
Well, all right, guys.
Go Rosa.
All right, guys. Hey, go Rosa. Hey, so speaking of debates, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy will have one later this month against Republican challenger Matt Corey. This past week, the Murph spent a bit of time in Connecticut attending a few media events with Governor Lamont. One was to celebrate the opening of a new clean energy facility in Farmington. The other focused on the ongoing reckless driving and deadly accidents that are happening on Connecticut highways and roads. The issue led Murphy to reach out to U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and ask for some help. Watch this.
I've sent an inquiry to the Department of Transportation asking for ideas and proposals about how the Federal Department of Transportation can work with us here in Connecticut to better understand the reasons why we've seen an increase in roadway fatalities.
The Connecticut State Police is tracking when and where and what days of the week fatalities are most frequent, and we are focusing our resources there. Using specialized enforcement, the teams are targeting roadways that have statistically significant numbers of motor vehicle crashes.
News 8 caught up with Murphy's Republican opponent, Matt Corey, to get his feedback on the senator coming out now on the issue of reckless driving. Watch this.
I'm finding it amazing that it took Senator Murphy 4 or 5 months to address the issues we're having out there, with Trooper Pelletier getting killed, tow truck drivers getting killed, and highway workers getting killed. And it's just a lack of response, what's happening.
Liz has been pounding the table for additional trooper classes for a long time here. The last one a few months ago, 24 new troopers. That's not going to make a difference.
It's not it. And listen, with all due respect to Governor Lamont, this is something he walked into, right? I mean, Governor Rell made this a priority, and Dan Malloy, like everything else, decimated the state with our trooper ranks. There's only so much you can do, but the lack of troopers, I think it was a missed opportunity for the commissioner not to be advocating for more trooper classes and talking about the impact of the trooper classes, because it's two things. It's a lack of troopers and the chilling effect of the police accountability bill that has handcuffed, for lack of a better word, our troopers from being able to do their job effectively.
Yeah, and I think it was the perception of the police accountability. We've now seen it a couple years out. We always said, as we were debating the issue, and we were debating it for years, is, well, let's see, you know, if we tinker with this, if we tinker with that, what does it do? There has been no cases that have really gone to the immunity aspect, which was the major fear, but it did have a perception, and it had a perception by the folks that are out there doing it each and every day. I think these deaths continue to add to it, whether it's a DOT worker or another state police officer. But I will give Murphy a lot of credit. He's not new to this issue. It was a forum that he was talking about, but he's been all over this for 6 months in conversations with the administration, with the public safety department, chiefs of police. So having him put it forward to Buttigieg is a great idea. I wouldn't say it's a lack of response, but it is an issue is facing the state. All of us, we drive, whether it's we're sitting in the middle lane and we're getting blown by going 90 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, going over to the... It's bad for everybody. People are going to die.
It's horrible, but it's not complicated. You know, one of those troopers sworn in by Governor Lamont was my nephew. Yeah. And Governor Lamont has sworn in new classes. But as Liz said, Dan Malloy decimated the ranks of the state police. We need more state policemen because we need more presence on the highways. Everybody knows when you see people driving fast, if there's a state police car on the side of the highway, everybody slows down.
Right.
We need more of a presence.
Dan Malloy's ears ringing a bit orange. Hey, it's the question on every Connecticut ballot this election year, whether or not to expand absentee balloting. When we come back, we're going to talk with a proponent who's bending every ear he can on this issue. Do not go away.
My board
Who's your guy, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, right. When people in Connecticut cast their ballot this election season, they will have a yes or no question to answer about no excuse absentee voting. Specifically, shall the Constitution of the state be amended to permit the General Assembly to allow each voter to vote by absentee ballot? And there's an ongoing effort right now to raise the awareness on this referendum. Here to discuss that effort is Mel Medina, VP of the Advocacy and External Affairs for the Connecticut Project. Mel, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Hey, first of all, you know, why expand absentee voting?
It's a great question, Tom. Really, you know, voting can be easy for many, but not for everybody. So voting yes on this ballot measure is really about prioritizing the needs of working folks, seniors, folks that have a disability or a health condition. This ballot measure is really about providing voters flexibility so that they can cast a ballot in a manner that works best for them.
You know, interestingly enough, News 8 did a package on this earlier last week that you guys are knocking doors on this issue, doing some canvassing. What are you hearing from voters at the doors?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. We're working with a pretty broad coalition now. We've contacted tens of thousands of voters across Connecticut. And what we generally find via phone calls, texts, or knocking on doors is that folks aren't aware of the ballot measure. But when you sit down and you explain to them what it is, people think it's a good idea. We explain to folks that voting absentee effectively means getting a ballot in the mail, and in the comfort of your own home, you get to fill it out, research the candidates, and put it back in the mail. People think it's a good idea, so what we like to think is, while many folks don't know about the ballot question, they know a good idea when they hear one, and so we're focused on just making sure that people are aware. We're urging folks to vote yes and urging their friends and family to vote yes as well.
Well, unfortunately, Connecticut became a national talking point with the arrest in Bridgeport. So what do you say to people who say potential fraud as a reason not to do this, including many Republicans?
It's a fair question. Now, I think we can work on election security and expanding access to the ballot box together. We can do both. And I think that that's key for folks to understand. Now, 35 states across this country have been able to figure this out. States from California to Oklahoma, states that vary in population, large or small, and states states that vary in their political makeup. But more importantly, we can just kind of look in the mirror and figure out that we've kind of technically did this before. Now, in 2020, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Connecticut lifted restrictions on absentee voting so folks can vote absentee. And what we found is that we can do it really well. So what I like to tell folks is we can walk and chew gum at the same time on this issue. We can expand access to the ballot box, and we can ensure our elections are secure and have integrity.
All right, so finally, so if voters approve this, what happens next? It's not as easy as just approving it and then you go vote, right?
That's exactly right, Tom. It's a great question. If we're able to pass this ballot measure and folks vote yes, that means we're kicking it back to the legislature, and that's important for voters to understand. Nothing is changing immediately. So if we are successful and this ballot measure passes in January, lawmakers will be introducing a bill and hearing from experts, stakeholders, and the public to ensure that we're safely and thoughtfully expanding absentee voting to everyone in this state. Now, as the Connecticut Project Action Fund, we'll be doing our part to make sure that lawmakers fulfill that promise. But what I would tell voters right now is that this measure, in light of the fact that it's going to go through a legislative process, is a safe choice. It's the right choice for voters. It's the right choice for our democracy, and we hope everyone's votes yes.
More to come on this one for sure. Melvin Medina, Vice President of Advocacy External Affairs at the Connecticut Project. Thanks for being here, Mel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Up next on Cap Report, we take a glimpse at an issue that's likely to capture a lot of attention during the next legislative session beginning in January. And yep, there's money involved. Details. We get back. Don't go away. Money involved. Money involved. That's really United Way released a startling report last week that finds nearly 40% of Connecticut households lacked the income to cover a realistic budget. The numbers from 2022 show a family of four needed to make nearly $114,000 annually to survive in Connecticut. This impacts 564,000 people in our state. Lawmakers leading a news conference about this last week say getting a permanent child tax credit in place will be on top of their priority list during the upcoming legislative session. Watch this.
The quickest way to make a difference of the bottom line for families is to make sure they have that money back in their pockets to spend on what they need to do for their families. I have to say that we know this is a proven approach in pursuing a child tax credit. We did it in 2022. Our federal government has proven that this can cut our child poverty.
Question is, Kate, hey, where would all that money come from for a child tax credit? So last week, State Comptroller Sean Scanlon provided his year-end summary for the 2024 fiscal year. The headline, Connecticut has a budget surplus of $400 million, and our fiscal health is the strongest it has been in decades. However, when it comes to making any changes to the volatility cap, the comptroller says we still need to tread lightly. Watch this.
We're not out of the woods yet. Obviously, that rainy day fund is imperative for us to keep strong so that if and when a recession does hit the state, whether that's in a few months or a few years, we are prepared and will not have to make some of the very, very devastating cuts and tax increases that we had to do the last time a recession hit the state.
Strong hair on Scanlon. McKinney, what do you think, huh?
Well, look, I appreciate everything the United Way does, but you know, they talk about how the two biggest drivers of a family budget are housing costs with utilities and food. And that's been the case for generations. But when food costs have gone up 40, 50% because of inflation under the Biden-Harris administration, you know, when housing costs have gone up, inflation has caused everybody to suffer. And higher taxes on the wealthy and government spending more money isn't going to help inflation. Spending more money, as Milton Friedman would say, is causing inflation. So we have to be very careful. And one last thing is, I know that we always talk about our kids and taking care of our kids. What the fiscal guardrails do, and what Governor Lamont knows and Sean Scanlon knows, is that we have burdened our kids and grandkids with tens of billions of dollars of debt. They're going to have to pay that. We're starting to pay that now, and we need to continue down that road.
But they're itching to spend, Joe. They're itching to spend.
But they're not wrong. We do have needs in this state, whether it's the Medicaid reimbursement rates, whether it's early childhood development, education, job training. We do have needs, and it is going to be to find that balance. John and I and Representative McGee were there during the times where it was every year, what are we cutting? What are we cutting? What promise aren't we living up to? The 2017 bipartisan budget got us away from that, started to pay down some of this debt. But now you're seeing the rub creating to where we're paying off our debt, but we have current needs that are out there. And it's going to be a balance. It's got to be done carefully. That pension debt is real. When I used to go out and meet with business leaders, they knew the number of our unfunded liability in our pension off the top of their heads.
Yeah.
So we got to continue on that path, but we do have to free up a little money for spending.
But why aren't we talking about, John makes an excellent point. The issue here when we're talking about cost to families is inflation. And let's look at the 2019 budget that imposed a broad, across-the-board sales tax on so many items that further increased inflation. Then we look at the fact that we raised the minimum wage and we've got paid family medical leave, all inflationary costs. HUT tax, inflationary costs. The government has driven up these costs more than anything.
All right, Brendan, wrap it up.
I'll just say this, you know, the Alice report, and just to humanize this, people are in need, right? And so the legislature, governor, all need to have a serious conversation as to how we are going to help people put more money back in their pockets, and all of the above.
All right, guys. Hey, so we have the proof that proofreading really matters. The story. Captiol Report returns. Don't go away.
No facts.
The word of the week in the city of Stamford, whoops, yep, the city had to scramble after, get this, 75,000 mailers were sent out to voters with the wrong polling information about polling locations. According to the Stamford Advocate, it seems the printing company, who was working on the mailers, had a software glitch, resulted in the two-sided cards having the wrong info. Alas, the postcards were reprinted and went back into the mail last Wednesday. It's not as bad as Matt Lester, basically, for sending a campaign mailer to the wrong district.
It's happened frequently.
That'll do it for Brandon, the coach, Lizzie, Johnny Mack, and the Dutch. See you next week. Go Mets, Johnny.
Come on, John.
Come on, you can do it.
Oh, not even close.